You ever finish a mix that sounds amazing in your studio, but then you play it in the car or on headphones or through a club system, and it suddenly just falls apart? The kick turns muddy, the synths vanish, or the drop loses all of its impact. It's frustrating, right? You've put in all this work, but outside of your room, it just doesn't hold up. And if this has happened to you, you're not alone. It's one of the most common struggles that electronic producers face, and it's also the difference between sounding amateur and sounding pro. So today, I'm breaking down exactly why your mixes don't translate across different systems, and how you can make your track sound great anywhere, just like the pros. And by the end of the episode, you'll know exactly what to focus on so you can stop second guessing yourself and finally trust that your mixes will hold up everywhere. But why listen to me? Well, I've toured 33 countries, had multiple number ones on Beatport, signed hundreds of records to the world's top labels like Armada, Spinnin', Toolroom, Defected, as Bass Kleph and Analog Soul. And since 2016, I've been helping producers like you finish great songs fast and get a pro sound. Yes, indeed. You're listening to episode 42 of Producer Talk with Bass Kleph, and let's get right into it. Today we're talking about why your mixes sound great in the studio but terrible everywhere else. And as you're listening to this, I want you to think about your last track. Where did it sound great? Where did it fall apart? Drop me a comment if you're on YouTube down below. I'd love to hear what you struggle with the most when it comes to translation. So let's kick it off with the first thing that I like to call the translation trap. And this is why most mixes sound fine in producers' rooms, but collapse elsewhere. And this really comes down to overtrusting one playback system. This is where you're putting all your faith into your one pair of speakers or your one pair of headphones, no matter what level their quality is or how they've been set up. Now, you can trust and put faith into your listening system if it's been set up well, if you're sure about that. But many producers haven't checked this or don't know how to check this. They've never been shown. They could be using a questionable pair of speakers, or if they're not, they might not be set up the right way. They might be on their side when they should be vertical. They might not be on isolated stands separate from the desk, absorbing all that resonance. They might be in the wrong part of the room, too close to the walls, pointing down the wrong direction of the room. All these things really matter. There might not be acoustic treatment. There might not be sub-traps. All of these things can massively impact the way you hear the music coming out of your speakers, even if they're really good ones. Many people are still not taking advantage of room correction software that can help correct the sound of your room with EQ as well. Things like SonarWorks Reference ID can work wonders. But ideally, the best thing you can do is all of those things. Learning about your speakers, picking the right ones for you, for the right size of speakers for your room as well too. Many people put ones that are too big for the size of their room, and it causes even more problems. But getting this stuff sorted, putting them in the right place, choosing the right speakers, treating your room acoustically, using bass traps and room correction EQ where necessary makes a massive impact on what you're actually hearing. Now, if you can't do these things, headphones are often a great alternative. I love mixing on headphones. But even then, you might still need some corrective EQ, like Reference ID. I mean, this is not a sponsored thing or anything, but that's just a great piece of software. You can find an alternative one, whatever works for you, but it's just something to consider to optimize your listening environment. And that's what this first part is all about, because if you're putting so much faith in your listening environment, and you kind of want to be able to do that, because we're sitting in the studio working really hard on our tracks. If I were to tell you that you couldn't trust your actual listening environment the way it is right now, you'd probably want to stop mixing and fix that before you did anything else, right? You'd want to learn how you're meant to set that up. Because here's some really common things that can go wrong. In many small home studios, like I said, they're not often treated well with their acoustic treatment, or maybe sometimes there's none at all. And a very common thing you'll get is a buildup of bass, usually somewhere between 100 to maybe 180 hertz. There'll be an excess of bass there. Now, if you're not aware of this, you're going to start thinking that everything feels like it's got too much of that, and you're going to start cutting there. You'll probably cut there on your kick or your bass line, and you're going to, in a way, rightfully think that sounds better. You go, I made a huge improvement. It sounds more clear. Yeah. It sounds less muddy. Yeah, in your room, in your particular room, it sounds that way. You're effectively designing it for your room. And this is a big part of the reason why it's not sounding good in other places, because it's a different room. Now, the low end can also be affected by your speaker placement. If its speakers are in the corner or too close to walls, it can really throw off the low end response as well too. And by not having just general acoustic treatment, you're going to get a lot more mid-range reflections. Your room's going to feel a bit more live and reverberant, and you might forget to put reverb on things because you're hearing the natural sound of reverb on things in your room. And you play it somewhere else and things are going to sound really dry. But yeah, your room can also affect the mid-range, the treble, the speaker position can affect that a lot too. Even if you're wearing a hat while you're mixing, you'll find it affects your perception of the treble a little bit. If you have one of those chairs with the high back where the sound is going to reflect off it, that'll affect things a little bit too. Now, this can happen to anybody. I remember times early on in my career where I started to notice, actually, I got tipped off from a mastering engineer when I was sending them my tracks, and they're like, you consistently seem to have a bit too much 200 hertz in your track, and they're a little dull in the top end. And what do you know? It was due to my listening environment. It was due to my room. And I've seen more extreme cases with new students that have come to our school as well too, where they're often having to do quite extreme cuts. They're often cutting things out, maybe say around even 100 hertz, because they feel like it sounds terrible for them in their room. And once we identify that that's an issue for them in their mix, and then we identify that it's an issue in the room, and we go back and fix everything, and now their room sounds great and they can make more informed decisions, and they can start to trust that room a little bit more. Now, what can also help here is having a second or even third set of speakers in your room, or even comparing against speakers and headphones as well, at the least. And they don't always need to be super fancy. I've had setups before where I'd have 2 to 3 sets of speakers up in front of me, and I'd have my speaker selector where I can compare at the same matched volume, see how things sound. But probably the most useful one was just having like a stereo in the back of the room with a long cable running to it. And when I would press that and have a listen to it, it's just playing on a normal kind of stereo that anybody would listen to it at home. Just, it wasn't like a professional studio thing. So it was giving me like an average experience of a listener, and it's not in any kind of optimal place. It was on the floor, actually behind some stuff, in a corner. But it changed your perspective and made you hear things from a different angle rather than perfectly between the speakers. And sometimes things would jump out and you'd notice, oh yeah, I didn't really notice that when I was in my science lab perfection position right here. This gave me a different experience of it, and I noticed something that I wanted to adjust. You can also alter your listening environment by moving yourself. Very often what I'll do is I'll get up and walk out of the studio around the corner as well too, and hear how the music bounces around and down the hallway, and hear how are the levels and my adjustments then? How do things sound then? That's a great way to get a different perspective. So even if you only have one set of speakers, we can all do that. This gives us more perspectives, more ways to challenge our mix and double check things are right. Because like I said, if you're overly trusting one playback system, just that one set of speakers in that position, just that one pair of headphones, you better make sure they're set up right and they're sounding true. Otherwise, they might be a lot of the reason things are getting thrown off and sounding strange on other systems. All right, let's get on to my second thought here, and that is why trial and error just doesn't work. Now, a big problem with why a lot of people's mixes aren't translating onto other systems is that they're approaching their whole mix down from a place of guessing, endless guessing. So they're trying to just throw things against the wall and see what sticks. Maybe this doesn't sound quite right. I'm going to put this plugin on and that plugin on, and maybe 3 more just for good measure. But the thing is, with endless guessing comes endless revision. And really, no consistency. Have you ever felt like you were guessing a bit on what to do next in a mixdown, and then you felt like you were endlessly tweaking that mixdown, and then you noticed that from one mixdown to another, you couldn't get the same results? Sometimes it might sound good, but then other times, not so much. And it might be a lot more difficult and a lot more time consuming. This is the problem with guessing. And I get it, for many people, that's the only way they can mix right now because they haven't been shown another way. Some people even teach in this way. It's crazy to see, where they're like, oh, let's just throw a bit of this on here and see what that does. And we'll throw a few more things until it maybe sounds a little bit better. How are you meant to learn from that? How is that meant to be repeatable? What we all need, and the right way to do it, is a system that shows you exactly what to do and when, and explains why. Because without a system, every mix is like starting from scratch. You restart with more guessing, endless guessing. You do endless revisions, and you have no consistency. And when you get a clear mixdown system, you know exactly what you're meant to be doing at any given moment. You can listen to what's in front of you and identify how it sounds now, how it needs to sound for the ultimate outcome of your mix to make it the mix the way you want it to be. You can hear what it needs. You can decide what tool can apply that, if that's even needed at all. Sometimes part of it is just knowing when to do nothing. But if it does need something, you know what tool to select, you know what setting to apply with that tool, and you know how to check if you did a good job. and when you're ready to move on to the next step, and you just keep going step by step. This is the way professional mix engineers work. They don't throw things against the wall and see what sticks. They know exactly what they're meant to be doing, and they're following that system. This is what gives them pro mixes and consistent results. Whereas guessing, well, wastes time with all those endless revisions and endless tweaking, but also gives you kind of wacky mixed results, which tend to not translate well on other systems. Especially when you combine that with the whole issue of what if your listening environment is not optimal. If you're throwing guessing into that as well, that's a recipe for disaster. And some other important things. Let's get on to what I would consider the big levers of translation for mixes, the things that probably make the biggest difference. And one of them, I've said this before, but I'll say it again because it's so important. It's just volume balance is so important. Maybe closely followed by EQ, but still volume balance so much more important, and more important than any other plugin you've got. I don't care if it's compression, distortion, reverb, delay, mid-side something, multiband, anything, dynamic, whatever. Your volume balance is the most important thing. You could have all your other settings perfect on everything, but if your volume balance is off, everything falls apart. And this is equally true for mixed translation. So ensuring you get your volume balance right is one of the most powerful tools you can have to make sure that your mixes sound great everywhere. Taking the time to respect your volume balance. I know it seems like it's such a simple thing. It seems like you'd be much more excited to get onto those plugins, especially the third-party shiny plugins, the ones that are recommended everywhere, the ones with the graphical user interface. Seems much more fun. Seems like what professionals focus on, right? Crazy thing is, it's actually volume balance is the most important thing, and the pros know that. They respect their volume balance, and they respect a good volume balance in a great mix as well too. And speaking of which, you need to know what a great mix is, and you need to be calibrating your ears to great mixes, and we call that referencing. We've spoken about this before and the importance of it. It's incredibly powerful, and I'd say, yeah, one of the other main levers, one of the other main powerful things at our disposal to make our mixes sound amazing everywhere, to translate everywhere. Because yeah, we need to know what good is. And especially we just talked about how important volume balance is, right? We need to know what a good volume balance is. We need to make sure our volume balance is similar to a great volume balance as well too. So we need to first identify a bunch of good mixes and have them ready, set aside. And we need to be comparing our mix with them as we're working in the appropriate way. This can help guide us massively towards having an amazing mix ourselves. Often you can even make your mix better than the reference mixes. The references don't limit you. They just help you get to at least a certain benchmark. I mean, why not take the help? Like you can do a long distance drive without a GPS, but it's easier with a GPS. You could find your way lost getting out of the woods without a compass, but it might be quicker with a compass and a map. Why not take it? If you've tried out referencing before and thought, I don't really need this, or I don't really get why this is, people talk about it, why it's important, don't see the point of it, there's a good chance you're not doing it the right way. And it's actually easier to do it incorrectly than you would expect. There's many things that need to be done the right way with referencing, otherwise, yeah, it would be useless. But when you do it the right way, oh my goodness, it's maybe one of the closest things to a magic bullet for improvement and consistency and quality in your mixdowns, but it must be done the right way. I don't know. It's hard to say if it is actually a magic bullet though, really. I mean, it's one of the best things, but there are so many things to learn with mixdown. Maybe the closest thing to a magic bullet is really the overall system, how to take all those things and put them in the right order and when to do what. That's the most important thing. Because yeah, we need to know what good is. We need to know what we're aiming for. How can you expect to hit a target that you can't see? We need to calibrate our ears to quality mixes. And not just to guide us, but to check our work, to check our decisions. Pro mix engineers will double check their work. They will compare and make sure they're on track, that they're getting closer. Because the alternative is getting lost and wasting time as well too. And getting inconsistent results that don't translate, right? Maybe you can relate. I know I've definitely had this experience when I was starting out. Have you ever had a situation where you're mixing something, you might be spending hours, maybe even just working on one part, a kick, a snare, or a certain vocal or something. Time flies by and you look at the clock and think, is it actually better? Did I improve it? I'm not sure. I know I did a bunch of stuff, but is it actually better? Sometimes mixing can almost feel a bit mysterious and ambiguous, right? Like, is it good? Is it better? But here's the thing. When you have the right system combined with referencing, mixing becomes quantifiable, measurable, and you can check your work. You can check that you're on track, that you're getting closer to your goal, and it gets rid of all that mystery, all that ambiguity. I think that's one of the most frustrating things about mixing is when you don't know for sure if you're doing it right or not. But as soon as that's cleared up, it becomes fun, becomes exciting. You often even look forward to it after the writing of the music part. And it's great because it gives you a confidence in your sound as well too. You can be confident as you're writing to be like, I know I'm going to be able to make this sound amazing. I know that when this is finished, it's going to sound awesome and it's not going to take me long. It's going to sound just as good as my last track, if not better, every time. So only improving up and up. Consistently great results that translate and sound great everywhere you play it. But yeah, aside from making sure your balance is nailed, maybe with a bit of fine tuning from EQ, and aside from referencing, I think one of the other really important, powerful tools we have at our disposal for mixed translation is making sure we're mixing in context. And what I mean by that is making decisions for all the instruments together, hearing them all together and working on them all together. You'd be surprised how often I see new students come to us and I might be watching them work. And when they go to EQ something, they'll press solo and they'll be EQing everything one at a time in solo. And you might think, well, that makes it easier for me to hear the sound. I can hear what I'm doing a little better. But here's the thing, mixing is not about making each individual sound amazing or fire or huge or something. It's more like a team sport. It's about making those sounds work together. They're a team. And different sounds have different importance and different roles within the song. Some do need to be big and powerful and upfront. Some need to be further back and more chilled and mellow. It's not about any one sound. It's the bigger picture, the collection of all of them. So if you're EQing stuff in solo, you're not paying attention to how that reacts with anything else. You're not designing it to react and work together with everything else. You'll end up with a mix where everything sounds enhanced or optimized, but they're not going to work together. You'll probably find that a lot of your parts would fight with each other. There'd be a lot of masking, or they might be even excessively separated and excessively cut, maybe out of fear or worry that you're doing something wrong. Overly cautious, you know what I mean? But when you're mixing in context and taking into account the bigger picture of things, when you're using referencing, when you're using that system and doing things the right way, you will have confidence. You won't feel overly cautious. You'll just get in there and do what you need to do. You'll listen, do the appropriate thing. That's it. Simple. You'll know what you're meant to be aiming for and you'll know if you've achieved it or not. And if you didn't, you know what to do next. I mean, imagine if you were drawing some big collage of a picture where there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. And every time you worked on a piece of it, you had to cover up everything else. You could only see one little part of it. It's kind of like you're looking through the peephole in your door or something, or some kind of tunnel vision. That would be crazy. That would be so much more difficult. If you could see the whole picture as you're working on it, you've got perspective. And we need the same in mixdowns. So as much as possible, we should be working in context, considering how things react with each other, considering the bigger picture of the mixdown. The greater purpose, the greater mission of what we're aiming for. Having perspective, all of these things help so much with your mixed translation. So these are some of the important things that pros do differently that really help with their mixed translation. They know how to dial in their listening environment. They've been trained how to select the right speakers, set them up in the right places, insulate them from their desks and whatnot, treat their rooms, and sometimes even use EQ correction software. Same with selecting the right headphones, also sometimes with correction software. That training on how to set up your listening environment can give you a great head start and foundation for the decisions you're about to make within the mix. It can help you trust your decisions a little more. But even if you didn't have a perfect listening environment, referencing would still help. And I think that is something crucial that they do, and more people should do. The fact that they spend time picking great reference tracks, learning what a great reference track is, what a great mixdown is, and why. Then actually using them as they're working so that they can know what they're aiming for, or they can know what good is, and know how to match their sound to that. Like I said, not to limit themselves, they can go beyond it. It just gives you literally a point of reference. It sets the benchmark, like the quality is going to be at least this good. Now, I've been doing this for a long time, and I can definitely still do a great mixdown without reference tracks because I've trained my ears over the years, and I'm used to the sound of my headphones and the sound of my room. But I still reference because it makes it even better. Why would you not take the help, right? Why make it hard for yourself? Makes it faster as well. The other thing pros do is they test their mixes across multiple systems as part of the process. Rather than wrapping up your mix and then having listened to it in the car, they've got multiple speakers set up in their rooms, like we were saying before, even maybe a sound system in the back, or maybe a single Oratone mono speaker or something like that. Different vibes of listening experiences so they can check in the moment, so they can get perspective. They're double checking their work. They want to make sure that it works everywhere as much as possible before they even leave that room. Now, like I said, even if you only have one set of speakers, you can still walk outside around the hall, things like that. You can change your position to give yourself different perspective. And in many ways, I think referencing is even more helpful than having multiple speaker sets. Correct referencing is incredibly powerful. But essentially what this all comes down to is they don't rely on having magic ears. They use a system. They follow a system that guides them on what to do when and what to do next, what they're aiming for, how to get there, and how to measure if they're getting closer. It's quantifiable, it's measurable, it's not mysterious. It's not like only some people can do this. Now, sure, the longer you do it, even following the system, yeah, your ears will develop. They will actually get better and better. Referencing is great for your ears. Teaches you to listen deeply. But even if you're just starting out, once you're shown the right mixdown system, your results will skyrocket and your consistency will be off the charts because you have that repeatable system. And then things, just get even better from there. And all of this is what helps their mixes translate. It's because of their workflow, or you might call it framework, or like I say, a system, something that forces consistency. It makes it repeatable. It's kind of like having a recipe for cooking a dish or something. If you've worked out that great recipe on how to cook it, why not make it great every single time? I suppose with the caveat that a great mixdown system will let you mix anything. It's not like it's going to turn out sounding the same. It gives you the tools to take whatever song you've got in front of you and shine the best light on it, to let it sonically match the emotion of the music itself. Or like a lot of people say too, it helps me make the music I hear in my head come out the speakers sounding the same. I no longer need to make excuses when I play it to my friends. And it's like, just listen to it. It speaks for itself. Makes you happy, makes you proud. And no matter what system you play it on, not just your home one, but your car, your friend's car, the club, everywhere. So look, if your mixes don't translate, it's not because you're untalented or don't have the right plugins. It's because you don't yet have a system that guarantees consistent results across different listening environments. And until you fix that, you'll always be second guessing your work. And that's exactly why I designed and teach my program, Pro Sound Secrets. Now, inside this course, I walk you through the complete mixdown framework that I've used for over 20 years to make tracks translate everywhere, from clubs and festivals all over the world to earbuds on the subway. It's not just random tips. It's a step-by-step system to give you clarity, speed, and importantly, consistency every time you sit down to mix. Now, enrollment only opens 3 times a year, and the next opening is soon. Spots are very limited too because I do work closely with every student. Now, if you want to lock in your place and get the pro sound of your dreams and finally stop worrying about whether your mixes will hold up outside the studio, then join the waitlist now at basskleph.com/PSS. That's basskleph.com/PSS. But while you're here, why not check out episode 40 of the podcast? It's called Why Your Tracks Don't Sound Professional and How to Fix It. Now, in that one, I break down the exact elements that separate bedroom mixes from chart-ready tracks, things like clarity, balance, emotional impact, and the translation secrets we touched on today. It's one of our most popular episodes, and it'll give you the next steps you need to finally make your music sound pro everywhere. Hit it up next.